And, okay. So Tom, the meeting recording and
Okay.
transcription has begun,
Yep.
and you
Tom
can
Frank.
take over.
Okay, this is Tom Frank, Chair of the Vermont Board of Libraries, and I call this meeting to order, our quarterly board meeting on July the 9th. I would first start by saying I'm calling from Jackson, 14th floor of the Hyatt Hotel in Jacksonville, Florida, where I'm attending I'm in the American Council of the Blind annual convention down here. And I will say I have to leave at 11:45 to make a trip at 12:15. So, Adrian, you got it. Taking over. Okay, Tom Frank, I'd like to go around. Could everybody say their name and the town where they're from?
Good morning.
I am Linda
This is
Sarnioki. I
go ahead.
am from Weston. Good morning.
Good morning, Linda.
I'm Rick Bates. I'm from Weathersfield.
Okay, Rick. Okay. And I know what we're at. It sounds like we're having some weather there. Okay. Okay, having
Sometimes
some
having the
problems
video
here.
off helps. Yeah, it doesn't by audio.
Okay. Okay, Adrian.
Good morning, Adrian Katz, Williston.
Okay. Lisa.
Lisa Barron, Milton.
And who are we missing there? Mr. Saunders? Who are we?
Jennifer Bells from North Bennington.
Ah, there you are. Okay, from Bennington. And anybody else on that hasn't spoken? Okay,
James,
so let's go around. Okay, there's James.
I'm sorry,
okay.
Tom. James is here. They're just having an audio problem in the conference room where he is. So hopefully they're working on that and they'll get it sorted out.
Okay, so James Saunders is present and technical difficulty. Okay, so who's here from the library? Kathy?
Good morning, Catherine Del Neo, State Librarian and Commissioner of the Department of Libraries. In the interest of time, I'm going to just read out who from the department staff are here with us today.
Okay, good.
Karen Gravlin, our able library director, Lauren and consultant for accessibility, Lauren Kelly, our consultant for cataloging, Jess Leal, administrative assistant to the department, Tom McMurdo, Assistant State Librarian, Info and Access Services, Josh Muse, Consultant for Library Technology, Jeanette Schaefer, Assistant Librarian for Library Advancement, April Shaw, our Government Services Consultant and Reference Librarian Extraordinaire, Kevin Unrath, our Consultant for Library Operations. Are there any folks that I missed from the department? Well, just scanning the list quickly. Let me just check. Okay, I think I got all of them, Tom.
Okay, so are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Oh, I want to just share one more thing. There are no members of the public present.
Okay, and that's what I was going to ask. Are there any comments from the public? So are there no one outside of the board or the library? Okay, thank you. So we don't have any public comment. Any additions or changes? Anybody? Okay, if not, I'll go on to the next one. Hello? Uh-oh.
Tom, you're breaking up
Oh,
a
there
tiny
you are.
bit, but
okay, I'll turn off my video. Okay, no changes to the agenda. And then I would say you can do your part. I don't have my agenda in front of me.
Oh, sure. The next thing is public comment, Tom. As I said, I don't believe any members of the public are present.
That I heard, and I said, yeah, okay, no members of the public. And then
Okay.
I said, you can start your part unless I've missed anything.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, item number 4, is approval of the minutes of the April 23rd, 2024 meeting. Those were posted online for public review and for review by board members.
Okay, and what we're going to do a little bit differently is we're going to wait for the changes because there was a bit of confusion there. Once the meeting minutes are posted within 5 days of the meeting on the web, there won't be any changes made to them officially until the board meeting. So if you have any changes, please bring them to the board, and then we will make the changes, approve them if necessary, and then the new minutes will be posted to the internet. That'll prevent any changes. I mean, prevent confusion that there has passed. Okay, does anybody have any changes or additions to the minutes of the April meeting? James is usually our grammarian there. And James is having problems. So I'm going to speak up to see if anybody can do that to James if he has any. If not, we can come back to James when we have that corrected.
James just said that he didn't have any.
Okay, James, you don't have any corrections. Kathy, you had received some, right?
Not to this set of minutes. This was Jess Leal's first set of minutes, and she did a really great job with them. And I didn't receive any comments from any board members with suggested edits or concerns. So we didn't hear any feedback after they were posted within the 5 days.
Okay, thank you. So there are any additions or corrections? So all in favor of approving the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any objections to the minutes? Are there any abstentions? If not, the minutes have been approved. Okay. Next on the agenda there, Kathy.
The next item on the agenda is for the board to discuss updates to its library, to the Board of Libraries bylaws. So
Right.
at our last meeting in April, you all discussed some necessary updates and some ideas that you had for improving the bylaws. We have updated the document. I shared it out with the board on Friday via email in advance of the meeting. I
Right.
shared a PDF with you. It's also posted online. If you'd like, I can pull up a Word document of it to share it on the screen now. And what I was recommending for the agenda activity was that I could walk you through the various red line edits. So what we did was to kind of treat it like we would treat our legislative documents. So things that we're recommending be eliminated have a cross through, and then the new text is in red. And I know that helps some of you more than others with different visual abilities, but if you'd like, I can pull up the Word document and edit directly in it during the meeting.
Sounds great.
And that would be good, yeah.
Okay, great. I
'Cause
will.
I reviewed it again last night. I had
Okay.
the swimming pool on the 19th floor was closed, and I was supposed to go down and meet people for drinks, and instead I read the
Minutes.
a dedication. Yes.
That is dedication. So the document, I want to just say it's a little bit challenging sometimes with these documents. I'm going to put you all visually. I like to see faces as I'm talking. It helps me know if what I'm saying is landing like a lead balloon. So hold on while I get my computer set up. I put documents on. I put notes on the document so that you could understand what the suggestions were. For those of you who are able to see my screen, you'll see the comments on the far right. And for those of you who aren't able to see it, as I walk through, I'm basically going to just be reading the comments that are on that. So These are the bylaws, the Vermont Board of Libraries bylaws. The first article, Article 1, general. The recommended changes here were to say, to cite statute the way that it's recommended we cite it. So rather than saying pursuant to 22 VSA Chapter 13, we would strike through 22 VSA Chapter 13 and write pursuant to 22 VSA Section 602. The Vermont Board of Libraries, the board, acts in an advisory capacity to the state librarian, who is the administrative head of the Department of Libraries. Does that change seem agreeable to folks?
Yes.
Yes.
It does to me. If there are any suggestions, speak now. Yeah. Anything to make it more accurate and easy. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll continue with the next sentence in Article 1 General, which is the board also is the designated state agency for geographic names pursuant to 10 VSA Section 152. That pursuant to, and then it used to say 10 VSA Chapter 9, but this is more specific. It is specific to the exact section in the 10th title of VSA. So are people comfortable with switching to that 10 VSA Section 52 rather than 10 VSA Chapter 9?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then the department recommends removing the next sentence entirely because we're talking about the board, not about the department. And there's a sentence in here that says the primary duties and functions of the department are set forth in 22 VSA Chapter 13, which seems a little bit just extra and maybe not necessary in the board bylaws.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Great. And so
There
we've
could be
removed
something
that
in the
sentence.
website. Yeah. If people wanted to know that, it could be put in the website that, because it's on the
Yeah,
board, on your website anyway, what those duties are.
Exactly.
And not in
Yeah,
our
and we,
bylaws. Right.
Yeah, to me, that made more sense than including this information about a different body, the department, in the bylaws of the board. So then the final sentence of this Article 1 General just remains as written now. Other duties and functions of the board include those set forth by law. So if that's okay, we can, we'll just do a revised document without all of these strike throughs so everything that we agreed on this time, Jess and I will bring up a new document that we can present next meeting for Article 1. So then moving to Article 2, membership of the board. This one is largely, the recommendation is just leave it as is, except to add a statute symbol between 22 VSA and 602 so that it is cited the way that the state likes to cite that.
You mean section symbol?
Section symbol. What did I misspoke. I'm sorry. Yes, a section symbol. So it's in the second line of Article 2, membership of the board. Membership on the board, including appointment terms and vacancies, is governed by 22 VSA Section 602, adding the section symbol. Is that agreeable to folks?
Yes.
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 Okay, great. Article 3, officers' duties and election. The first paragraph, I'd recommend moving a sentence that appears in the fourth line. The state librarian shall serve as secretary to the board. Moving that to the end of the paragraph, to the end of section 1, because it sort of interrupts this discussion of officers and elections, to put it in the middle where it was. So the first sentence, I'll just read it because Tom, I think that might be beneficial to you. Am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's
So
right. I know you're.
With the edits, no language has changed except one sentence will move to the end. So I'll point out where the sentence would be, and then at the end I'll read it where I recommend we move it to. Section 1, officers and election. The officers of the board shall consist of a chair, vice chair, and secretary. The chair and vice chair shall be elected by the board from its members at its annual meeting. Any member may nominate candidates and may demand a written ballot. Nominations do not require a second. This is where that state librarian line sits now. So just, there's a deleted line here. In the case of a vacancy in the office of either chair or vice chair, the board shall elect a member to fill the vacant office to serve until the next annual meeting. This election may take place at any regular meeting, provided that the election of the officer has been properly warned. And now is where I've suggested we move the sentence, the state librarian shall serve as secretary to the board, because that position isn't elected. Does that sound
It's not
agreeable? I see a
elected.
thumbs up from Rick.
Yes. Sounds to me great to me. Yeah.
think
Okay,
it's a
so I'm
good
putting a
idea.
note in my thing that says board agreed. Is that okay, Linda?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. In our last meeting, in the section 2 terms of office, the board recommended that we add something here. So I'm going to just read this quickly. The terms of office for the chair and vice chair shall be for 1 year from the election at the annual meeting or until a successor is elected. No officer shall be elected to the same office for more than 3 successful terms. The board recommended we add successful full 1-year terms.
I think you mean it's excessive.
I'm sorry.
You might
successive.
say
I'm so sorry.
that you're describing my term as opposed to
It's successive. I'm sorry. It's not the quality of your term. It's the successiveness.
Yes.
That would mean a bad chair could stay forever
Yeah.
because he didn't have
Right.
successful term.
Try again.
Yeah.
Tom, we're going to have you
Unsuccessful
try
term.
again. So
Yep.
I have a couple of comments about this after looking into it further and getting some advice. The bylaws as written allow for a chair to be elected for no more than 3 full terms of office, 3 full 1-year terms. As the term of office for the role of the chair or the vice chair is already 1 year, saying this is a little bit redundant or unnecessary. Because we've already defined in the first sentence that the term is 1 year. So this isn't the term of appointment on the board. This is the term that you can serve as the chair or the vice chair.
Right.
So the question is, do you want it to be a little bit redundant just to have the clarity, or do you want to just leave it the way it had been and take out the successive full 1-year terms addition? Just have it say successive full terms.
I wasn't part of the April discussion if this is when it was discussed, but I don't see a reason to have that redundancy in there. I would prefer to take it out.
I agree.
Yes. I agree.
So I'm going to strike it through and highlight it so that we can find it again, Jess. So board agrees to remove 1 year. And leave text of section 2 as is. I had another comment. I wanted to be sure that now that we really understand these successful full terms, that the board really does want to impose this limit of terms on itself, because this is not required in statute. This is the board limiting itself. So if you imagine a situation where Linda is the board chair in the future and she's doing a great job and it's the 4th year, she cannot be the board chair again. If you had an awesome chair that was elected in, they could only be the board chair for 3 successive full 1-year full terms. That's 3 years total. But we may have seen situations where this was misunderstood a little bit, and we may have had board chairs in the past who even served for longer in that board chair role.
Kathy,
So I just want to be sure you could take this out.
Kathy, I was thinking about that. And I wonder if, and I don't recall this having read through the bylaws, I don't recall that it says this anywhere, that we can, by a majority vote of the board, we can supersede the bylaws at some point. But I think it might be an appropriate place to put it here, to put in a sentence that says, if something like, if circumstances warrant, the board is authorized to extend the term of office for, at their pleasure, or something like that. I mean, we could put a qualifying statement in there so that if somebody wants to end it at 3 years or basically 3 years, they could do that. Or if the board wants to get rid of somebody after 3 years, we can do that. But we also could extend it if we wanted to.
I like that.
May I suggest
Sure,
that
please.
rather than say people can only be there for 3 terms, on the other hand, we can change our minds, which I think is pretty confusing. We get rid of the original limit and leave it at that. Or we leave things as they are.
Now, just Tom here. My personal opinion is the reason for term limits is we've had problems in the past that there's no transition. I mean, you usually start in there, you learn the ropes, and you got to get off after 8 years anyway, because you can only serve 2 4-year terms. And I always figure if you don't have a term limit, if you're doing a really great job, you're stuck forever. And if you're not doing a great job, a lot of people don't want to say that. So in either case, I sort of like term limits, but we can limit to but under, maybe saying under extenuating service, or a 2/3 vote, or a vote of 5 members of the board instead of 4. I just think it's a check and balance is all, and brings other people up into that position. Okay, there's a hand raised.
Oh, Lisa.
Yeah, hi. Before you started to speak, I was really kind of on the same wavelength. I really agree with term limits, and in all kinds of voting, even library boards. But if the maximum that somebody could be there is 8 years, then I mean, I could envision that if we have an overriding sentence in here that, somebody could be the board chair for 8 years. And I agree with you, like, people don't want to say, well, you're not doing the greatest job or whatever, but we're just going to keep the status quo. And it does say successive. So I don't know why there wouldn't be a problem with maybe having somebody for 3 years and then giving somebody else a shot. And then that person could go back to, because that would mean like in a row, right? And if
Correct.
they
Yes.
took a year or 2 off and came back, they could still serve.
I'm not sure that I want to try to guard against board members not taking their job seriously. If we think somebody's not doing a good job, we should step up and own that and elect someone else. That's part of what we're here to do. I don't know that we need to try to build systems that take into account the idea that we might not do our job.
Well, I mean, I agree with you there. That's not really what I was getting at, but I do think that people should have an opportunity to work, become the chair if they're interested in it, and if somebody serves and they're doing a great job, that's great, but, maybe somebody else could have an opportunity as well. I feel like this could, be like for their whole, for all the time they're on the board, they could be the chair. I mean, and maybe that's okay with everybody.
Well, I like the idea of having orderly transition, and
Yes.
so I think that's kind of the unspoken deal with someone saying, yes, I will be vice chair. You realize that if you run for that and get elected, you risk becoming the chair next. And that's a sort of a way of managing change within the board. And I'm good with that. I think that if I were making the decision on what to do with section 2, I would just delete the 1 year that we've already decided on. And I think I would leave it at that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What about in this, do we need to cover ourselves for the circumstance that, I've been board chair for 3 years, 3 successive terms, and successful, I'm sure, as well, but successive, 3 successive terms, and whoever Rick is interested in taking over, but can't do it for a year, because he has other obligations or whatever, so he can't do it for another year. So then I have agreed, and the board says, yes, Linda should stay in the position for a 4th term. But that's not allowed in the bylaws. Do we want to cover ourselves for that sort of instance, that giving ourselves the leeway to elect someone for longer if circumstances warrant?
Rick shouldn't have stepped up to agree to be vice chair if he knew that he wasn't going to be able to take on responsibilities if he needed to.
Well,
but circumstances always change.
Right.
I mean, sudden things happen.
Well, I want to be sure that that we're clear about a couple of things. One of them is that every year the board does elect, and so that is something that we do every year in January. And the elections have typically been uncontested, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's how they have to be. So the other thing is, I've been on boards of, or just to share some anecdotal information, I've been on boards of organizations before, and then circumstances of my life have changed, including moving out of state. So we have things that could happen where somebody gets a new job, or they move out of state, or they're just unable to do something, even if, say, you could have someone too that really enjoys being vice chair, but isn't as interested in becoming chair. There's nothing in the bylaws that talks about that ascension. I think that's something we see happen, like you have a vice chair or something and they sometimes become the chair, but we also see situations where that isn't what happens for any number of reasons. And so I would just encourage the board to take the election, to really think about the election, what's best for the success of the board, and to encourage people to step forward for these roles. I think sometimes we like to kind of, my concern was just that when I was making these points about that it could be removed, just that you knew that this was a term limit you imposed. And it sounds like it's been working. I mean, has the board had any long stretches of time with somebody serving as board chair for more than 3 years?
I don't know how long Bruce was on, but he was on forever. Poor Bruce.
Yeah, it seemed
Yeah, I
like
think
Bruce
the
was
whole
there
time,
for more than 3,
James and I
that's
were
why
on the
I
board.
thought maybe.
But that was a failure of being able to find new board members, and that problem has been solved, I believe.
From the department's perspective, if this isn't broken, then maybe don't fix it. You can always change your bylaws it's not hard. It just takes 2 meetings to change bylaws if you anticipate a problem with this in the future. But if this is the history of the organization and this is how you've been operating as a board, then, and there seems to be consensus that people like the idea of term limits and transition, then it seems clearer to leave it this way, perhaps, would be my recommendation.
I think I would agree, and I would point out that we do have a bit of wiggle room already built in. The end of the first sentence is, or until a successor is elected. someone finishing their third year as chair could, if we don't elect somebody else, they get a fourth year.
And I think that's what happened with Bruce. Nobody wanted to step up.
So that's kind of already built in if necessary. That may be enough.
Okay. I would agree with that. In other words, leave it the way it is.
Get rid of what we've
1
agreed
year.
on, I think, the 1 year.
Yeah, the 1 year. Yes.
So
Yeah.
is it okay? Am I understanding the board's reached consensus on leaving the rest of the section 2 the same?
How are you feeling, Linda?
Oh, Linda, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Yes, that's fine with me. I like Rick's noting of the wiggle room in at the end of the first sentence, so that's fine. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so I put a note in here. There are no changes to the chair section, check section 3, so I won't read that again. There are no changes to section 4, so vice chair and their duties, so I won't read that again. I do have a recommended edit to section 5, secretary, which is to strike the final sentence of this paragraph completely. The final sentence currently reads, the secretary shall also be responsible for board, I think it just says board compliance. I think this is a typo. Well, board compliance with access to public records, open meetings, and similar laws. In actuality, this is an overstatement of the secretary's role. The board chair is responsible for some of this, and each board member is responsible for their
Yes.
own behavior.
Yes.
And to place it on me is really challenging. The two ideas are either remove it entirely, but if you want to retain something about my role in assisting you, something that I'd be comfortable with would be the secretary shall also assist the board and its members in compliance with access to public records, open meetings, and laws pertinent to public bodies, so that I could help facilitate trainings or things of that nature. But I'm not taking on the responsibility. I'm not paying the fine if you all start emailing about things.
I agree wholeheartedly, because the board itself, we are sort of an autonomous group set up by statute and appointed by the governor. So we have responsibility to knowing what we're doing. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. You're not paying the $500 fine if we say what open meeting law? Yeah.
So
Right.
would you?
The fact is that the sentence is not true. You aren't responsible for our behavior.
No.
We are. So we should at least remove it. Replacing it with what you suggested, that the secretary will assist, that would be fine. But the notion that you're responsible, yeah, that needs to be removed.
Yeah.
I like the idea of assistance or advice, or the secretary will advise, but maybe that's even too much responsibility. So I like the term assist that you've suggested, Kathy.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, I agree.
Can I also note that in this paragraph, there's a repeated sentence. The first sentence is repeated as the third sentence. Secretary shall provide the notices and agenda, record the votes and proceedings, etc.
That could be a secretary problem. I may have done that because Jess and I were having a lot of trouble editing the document when we converted it back. And I think that we made that mistake. So I'll just remove that. Thank you for noticing it.
Yeah, good catch.
So we're going to strike the current final sentence, final two sentences, final sentence, I guess, and replace with this.
Could you just read that again, Kathy, please? The new sentence.
The secretary shall also assist the board and its members in compliance with access to public records, open meetings, and laws pertinent to public bodies.
Yeah. I think that's good. Thank you.
That's good.
You're welcome. Okay, great. So moving right along, I emailed some information in my role assisting you all with these things. I am aware, like many of you are, that open meeting law changed effective July 1st. So I shared information with each board member directly, just letting you know that the law has changed. And there aren't huge changes for us all with regards to the location of regular meetings, which is Article 4, meetings, notices, and committees, Section 1, regular meetings. That's the next area we're on. But I got I looked into as far as like how we should handle this. We did need to update where this part is very messy. Hold on. This. We talked last month about deleting this old information from the second sentence. So let me just read how it is right now. The regular meetings of the board shall be held quarterly on the second Tuesday of January, April, July, and October at 10 a.m. Regular meetings of the board shall be held at the Mid-State Library Service Center in Berlin. And we talked last month about adding shall be held online with an option to attend on site at 60 Washington Street, Suite. This is very messy. Suite 2, Barre, Vermont, 05641. So that first sentence brings us into compliance with the hybrid meetings that are required of public bodies that have not just an advisory capacity, but also a non-advisory capacity. So my understanding is that any public body that has specific legal activities that it does, including geographic naming, would be required now in the current open meeting law to have the hybrid meeting as its default. So holding it online with the on-site option, which we've been doing on our own, is now required for at least the geographic naming meetings.
Right. Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's a little convoluted to try to explain, but basically the board has both advisory duties where it advises me as state librarian. And there's one set of public meeting requirements about where and how regular meetings are held. And then there's this other duty, which is geographic naming. The department is recommending that to simplify things, we just always follow those of the non-advisory function of geographic naming, which would be to have the hybrid meetings. So we're always meeting online with the on-site option. But we probably should bring back, unless otherwise noticed by the secretary, because occasionally you do meet in other places. And we notice that meeting, right? So we want to leave that functionality there. So I'm just now realizing we probably want to say unless otherwise noticed by the secretary. So we could go down and meet in Rutland with a hybrid option from Rutland. We just have to notice it. I think I saw a
appreciate
hand
that.
from James, and then, but I'm not from James, from Rick, and then I see Linda's hand.
You answered my concern, which was but what if we decide we want to have an on-site meeting elsewhere?
Okay.
That was my question as well. I wanted to be sure we still had that option because I really like going to other libraries. And we haven't really done that since COVID. So it'd be great to do that again.
Yeah. We had talked about doing it in the summer or fall months. So we can discuss that potentially for our next meeting. And then this final sentence of this section.
Well,
on
let
regular
me say
meetings-
one
Oh,
before
sure,
we go on. Let me say one thing on that. You can still leave the office. For example, even if we were meeting in Rutland and somebody, it's for people that don't have internet access or whatever, they could still come to the library, 60 Washington Street, and participate there. So that's good, even though in person we might want to meet in Rutland. I think the reason for that is that some people don't have internet, can't deal with it, or whatever. So there's always a physical place where they can go.
Yeah, I think the logistics of having a hybrid with 2 in-person meeting locations could be tough, but we could definitely do it. I would think that we would probably want our tech support with us on the ground in the other location. So I would be inclined to say if we're meeting in Rutland,
Oh, yes.
we bring Jess with us, we bring Josh with us. The team from the department gets to sit in person if they so wish. But I think that if we noticed it, that would all be included in this language.
Yeah.
So if people are comfortable,
Yeah.
let me read it again. Regular meetings of the board shall be held online with an option to attend on site at 60 Washington Street, Suite 2, Barre, Vermont, 05641, unless otherwise noticed by the secretary. Are people comfortable with that?
Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, so that's perfect. And then this final sentence in this section about regular meetings currently reads, individual board members may participate in regular or special board meetings via telephonic or electronic means of communication. Well, that's already clear because we're holding the meeting online. And this is kind of repetitive to what open meeting law already says. So I'd recommend we delete that. And then the final sentence similarly is redundant and slightly confusing. Board meetings may be conducted entirely by telephonic or electronic means when properly warned as such. We probably had these in these notes here in the past because open meeting law didn't provide for this type of thing. And now it's actually a little bit in conflict with the current language of open meeting law. So I would recommend that we just delete these because it's no longer necessary to say we can do those things. Open meeting law provides for that opportunity already, and you're following open meeting law.
Because it's mandated anyway. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, there's a hand.
Yes, it occurs to me that
Rick.
we're now dropping from the bylaws any mention of being able to attend the meeting by telephone. Do we want to tuck that back in somewhere?
I don't believe we need to. I can get more guidance on this, but my understanding is that if you're meeting on Teams and there's an option in Teams to attend by phone, then that's part of held online.
Okay.
So for example, when you called in before, James, you were here online with us.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
I
we
just
calling
called
need
you
to.
James, but
yeah.
you're Rick. I'm sorry, Rick. I'm having name issues. So you were here online with us, even though it was by phone, but I can confirm that and
We
bring
might
back any language if we need to add that back in.
we could perhaps replace the word online with electronically, and that would cover both and whatever else might come down the pike, maybe.
I think what we need to be careful about is that, like, say you were doing the whole meeting in a voice over IP call. That's not quite the same as, like, if all of you just called in, that's not quite the same as holding it online. I don't think.
I think
Because
Kathy,
other
it'd be great
people
to get
can't.
some guidance about this.
Yeah,
And
I'll-
Okay, I guess we
Let
would
me,
still okay, I'm good.
I'm going to put in a note here to get some guidance. To secretary will obtain guidance on definition of online. Does it encompass telephone call ins to a virtual meeting?
Mhm.
Does that sound like the question?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
yes.
Great. I'm gonna
It's-
also do a little highlight of that so I don't forget it. Okay.
That's important because we also have members of the public that could call in. Also, not just board
Yeah.
members.
At one point, I thought I would say held online via Microsoft Teams, but then
when
it was
that
like, well,
changes-
if we change to something else, and this
Right.
was what was settled on. So I'm just putting in here also that the board agrees to remove the final, these two sentences at the end. I don't know what this object is.
It might be clarified in the open meeting law itself. So that's.
I'm making sure, Jess, something went fluey here with our notes, there was what I was seeing on my Word document screen was an object instead of the word annual. So I've just written this word annual back in, board members, in section 2, annual meeting. I removed this object that was there and put in the annual meeting shall be the first regular meeting of the calendar year. So there's no actual change here. It's just that I fixed what it originally said.
Kathy, if you care, the indentation is different. Section 2 is not indented the way section 3 and section 4 are.
Should it be? Yes.
I don't know
I
what, I
saw
can't
something
remember what it
funky
is.
with spacing. I think section 1 is off too.
Yeah. Okay, so everything's
And
indented.
section
There you
2
go.
up here. So Jess and I need to look really closely at is this right, justified or not? Like, look here, this is off too.
Yep. Just make it consistent. It doesn't really matter which way it goes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. It's nice to have the indentations.
I always I've learned in many ways that we're supposed to be doing left justify for some of the ADA readers, like the special readers. I don't know, Tom, if that's true.
It works better because when you're going down line by line, it's sometimes strange.
Yes.
And does Karen have any guidance on that? I know she's the inclusive services.
Karen? I'm not sure if she's available.
And
Karen,
actually, Jess can throw through AI. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm here, and I just was going to concur with Tom that it's not required, but I think that it does work better.
So for screen readers, preference to align to
The left margin.
sort of left justify for ease of screen readers and readability. So we'll work on that formatting, and we can put the document through department. We'll put documents through the ADA. There's like a ADA check feature.
Yeah.
Okay. So back in here, section 3, we've got special meetings. I'm a real lover of the Oxford comma, the serial comma, and we're missing one. Well, we're missing 2, I'm noticing, in this section. So I recommend adding special meetings may be called at any time by the chair, existing comma, vice chair, new comma, or 2 members of the board. And then similarly, written notice of the time, comma, place, new comma, and purpose of the meeting shall be mailed to the members by the secretary at least, and then we'll pause there to just, are you all okay with the commas?
The
Yeah.
Oxford, the
Absolutely.
Oxford comma is one of the few absolutes in this changing world of ours.
Well, there have even been lawsuits where there was a trucking lawsuit related to Oxford commas, and I thought for sure that us Oxford comma lovers would not have to fight the battle anymore, but we still have to fight the battle because people still aren't using it. Okay, so then the next thing, there is a substantive change coming up. The purpose of the meeting shall be mailed to the members of the board by the secretary at least 24 hours before the special meeting is to be held. We had talked about having it be 24 hours before the special meeting is to be held. Because the special meeting is usually like a last minute meeting and then you're doing 7 days and that's not what it's required in open meeting law.
Is it gonna be a written notice and mailed to the members? Or will it be emailed or?
Or sent?
Why don't we say sent?
Excellent.
So, purpose of the meeting shall be sent to the members by the secretary at least 24 hours before the special meeting is to be held.
Yes. Okay. That's good. And then either text message or email or a combination thereof.
Board approves changes. Okay. And no changes to the rest of this. Although I'd like to be really, I'm going to go back and be sure that I've incorporated any guidance I've received and potentially get more guidance on this final sentence, because I want to be sure that it makes sense regarding open meeting law. It says notice may be waived by unanimous consent of the members, but such waiver shall not excuse compliance with applicable law regarding notice to the public. I mean, we're already adhering to open meeting law. Like, this seems like we could get into a spot where we violate open meeting law by accident.
Yeah, I don't know if I thought that we could actually waive the consent of, waive the notification. The only thing I thought I knew was that if it was super emergent, that you could waive notification if it had to happen like immediately or something, but I could be wrong about that.
I'm not sure. I don't, purpose, notice of the meeting has to be at least 24 hours before the special meeting is to be held. 24 hours, I'm not sure that's enough time. I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't check my email.
I
don't
think that
check
we
it daily.
would. So hold on a second. That's different. Hold on. Trying to look at Act 133. Here's the guidance summary. I'm going to just quickly scan. I think that the special meeting, we need to be sure that this area, so rather than, I'm trying to scan quickly, but I'm not seeing there may not be a change to this one. Hold on. I think that we need to get more guidance on this part, to be honest, because I don't want to run afoul of open meeting law in our bylaws. My team is probably telling me things and I'm not even seeing it, but 1 second. They're not.
I'm personally pretty comfortable with the 24 hours. I'm having a hard time imagining a state library emergency
Yeah.
that required our action in less than 24 hours.
I'm looking at the Secretary of State's guidance for open meeting law prior to July 1st of this year. On page 5, a special meeting occurs when a board meets at a time or place outside of its regular meeting schedule. At least 24 hours before each special meeting, a public body must publicly announce it will be giving notice, must publicly announce it by giving notice of the meeting time, etc. So that 24 hours is the amount of time in open meeting law. We wouldn't regularly do this. I don't think there's going to be to Rick's point, a library emergency of that type. We typically do it if, like, I think in April we had to move to a different Tuesday.
And then we also
could
had to
say
add a special
nothing.
one for naming when we had Negro Brook
Yeah.
or whatever. We had to
Yeah.
deal with it between our quarterly meetings. So
Right.
anything that isn't a quarterly meeting has to be announced. And we came back in July to finish it up. And that was fine.
Yeah, so I don't
And
think
we
that
gave
there's
2
been
months notice, I think.
oops.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I don't think that there's been any change to this aspect of open meeting law. But
We need to say, written notice of the time, et cetera, shall be sent to the members by the secretary at least 24 hours prior to, we have to say members, to the members of the board and the public?
No, it's just to the members. And then we're noticing is separate to the public.
That gets published in the 3 different places or whatever, wherever we have to publish it.
we need
That's a
to, I don't think that we have to restate everything that's in public meeting law. So this is really with regards to you all, like, we always put it up online as well. There's a degree to which when we try to paraphrase open meeting law, we run the risk of getting it wrong and adding confusion to it. So there's a part of me that feels like, why not just get rid of all of the things after special meetings may be called at any time by the chair, vice chair, or 2 members of the board, period.
We could perhaps then include a sentence that, although I guess it's not necessary, such meetings shall be called in accordance with state open meeting law.
Yeah, I think that's good because what if they make changes to the law, then we have to change the bylaws.
That's good.
Okay.
Or we could just know that we're operating in the context of open meeting law and say nothing.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, or drop that whole thing together.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, and the question is, and the only problem I had this, okay, let's say the chair doesn't want a special meeting and the vice chair does. I guess that's one, because the vice chair could call for a meeting and say the chair is really messing up and we want to talk about changing and dealing with that issue. So I'll leave it. I'm thinking of that. Yeah. If I really went off the off the rails or whatever, the vice chair could call a meeting, special meeting of the board,
or 2 members.
Or 2 people could say, "My God, he's off the wall," and deal with it immediately. Yes. Okay, that's good.
So are people comfortable striking the second and third sentences completely? So that section 3 special meeting just reads, special meetings may be called at any time by the chair, comma, vice chair, comma, or 2 members of the board, period. And then we just get rid of this extra language that is duplicating open meeting law language about how to do that. Because the department's getting its direction on how to do that on your behalf and giving the chair advice on how to do that on your behalf,
Right.
I'm perfectly fine with that as marching orders for the board. It makes sense. as a outside reader of those bylaws, I might say, well, that allows for quite the power grab. And I might feel better if I did hear that bit about as allowed under open meeting laws or something that might make me say, okay, they're not going too far afield.
What about,
As permitted by Vermont law, period.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Don't even have to say open
Notice
meeting law,
of-
because there might be
notice
another
of
meeting
special
law.
meetings.
Right.
Notice of special meetings will be provided to board members and the public in accordance with Vermont law.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
Okay, so
That
we're
sounds fine.
striking, we're gonna, so this is all, I'm gonna just put a note here, because Jess and I need to go back, like, board agrees to include only first two phrases, delete remainder of, which that gets rid of my need to follow up.
And that also is a check on that. So if the chair wants to call a special meeting, I better, or whoever's the chair, better consult with you to make sure we're complying with open meeting law. And that's your thing on the secretary to advise.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're keeping on here. This is taking a little longer than we might have thought on the agenda. So I just want to do a time check that right now it is 11:15 and that our board chair needs to leave at 11:45. So we have half an hour left. So I can just keep going with our next topic, which is section 4 agenda. The first two sentences of that read, the agenda for regular board meetings shall be prepared by the state librarian after consultation with the chair. Members of the board may add agenda items by request. I kind of wonder why it doesn't say by the secretary, because that's my role in this body.
Yeah. I agree. I'd put secretary in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's all of this stuff about the agenda being distributed, and I have a note. I recommend removing this sentence because the distribution of agendas is already outlined in open meeting law. There was some conversation about updating the language here to match the new open meeting law requirements, but this policy will be, or the bylaws will be more evergreen. They'll be not having to be touched so frequently if we just remove this specific information and we know we're referring to open meeting law. We could use the same sentence we had up above. Note it, we could say agendas will be, hold on a second. We could say agendas will be provided to board members and the public in accordance with Vermont law.
Absolutely.
Vermont law.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
great.
And that's a reminder to us.
Yeah. Okay, speaking of a reminder to us, I'm recommending that you remove section 5, voting and quorum entirely. This doesn't match with existing statute, from what I understand. So the Board of Libraries has 7 members, and that means 4 of you are required to vote on any matters. Any matters includes minutes. Any matters includes everything. And so this thing about voting and quorum kind of implies that you've got some sort of ability that isn't called out in the joint authority statute or in any other statute about you. Now, there are public bodies that have other things they can do. They might be able to vote on minutes without a full quorum, but you don't have that. So the only thing here that maybe relevant to you and legal is that you each have one vote, but you kind of already know. I mean, nobody gets 2 votes, right? So I just recommend removing section 5.
And the quorum is this by the law and not members, because sometimes quorums determine the majority of members present. So if only 5 of us are meeting and 3 vote affirmative or negative, it doesn't make any difference. It's of the board. 4 members have to. It's not a quorum if we only have 5 people present.
In this body, the quorum is always 4 because your public body has 7 members. And this, I just popped into the chat the joint authority statute link, which is where I think that the bylaws are actually in conflict with that. That's my understanding. So
I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure where the conflict lies. We do, one of the things here talks about when voting to amend these bylaws. I mean, we do have the authority to amend our own bylaws, and don't we have the authority to determine geographic naming? I mean, there's a vote that is legally binding. Yes.
yeah, and you do have that authority, but you need 4 of you.
Right.
Right. So the way that this is written, it says when voting on other matters in a non-advisory capacity, for example, approval of minutes, that you could do that with just 3 of you present. That is not true. You need a quorum when you're doing any vote.
Oh, I see. So we'd want to take that out.
Yeah.
So we could meet if there were only 4 members, but we couldn't do business unless all 4 of us agreed. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can't take any action, including approving minutes or really any action that might be on an agenda you couldn't do. So this legislation, this joint authority is really what you're bound by. The rules on voting and quorum in there that apply to public bodies are what you're bound by.
So you're suggesting that we not have anything about voting or quorums in our bylaws at all? Not even a statement in regard to voting and in regard to voting on our, well, in regard to voting, we will follow Vermont statute. We don't even want to put that qualifying statement in there?
This is my recommendation, but Linda, you may have better ideas, and what you just said may be a better idea, right? So if the board wants to put in a statement like that, then you absolutely, they're your bylaws. So I just know that this paragraph is a little bit potentially in conflict.
Yeah, I get that, and I think that's really good that you picked that up. But and I think for the same reason that Tom just mentioned, it will remind us that we are bound in our voting on the things that we're allowed to vote on. We are bound by a statute. It's not just a free for all and whatever the chair decides. I think it makes sense to put in there that we are bound by Vermont statute in regard to quorums and voting. I don't know how you want to word that, but.
I agree, not only as a reminder to us, but as a statement to the public so that they don't worry about us going rogue somehow.
Yeah. And it's not much as on the advisory, but the naming, as you know, with Negro Brook and some of them can get very contentious.
Well, let me put a placeholder here. Quorum of and voting by public bodies. I will get some advice on how best to phrase that for our
next meeting. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, of course. And I appreciate, part of this too is for the department. Like right now, we're really involved in this, but in 10 or 20 years, some new state librarian comes in and they're like, well, why can't we blah, blah, blah. And that will help our department too.
That's
Good point.
It will also help clarify when people see bylaws, there's usually voting and quorums addressed. New people as there's turnover. This will be very helpful to them.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that was really interesting to me is that, we're kind of coming to this, at least I am thinking of it like, okay, what does a public library do? And this is slightly different. So like, I think that the bylaws were made largely by trustees of library boards, almost in a model on how a public library board's bylaws are developed. But we're not a public library, you're not a public library board. And so that's a little bit funny too. And so that's part of why, like, there may actually be differences from what our group of individuals is used to, is what I've been learning throughout the process of working on these a little bit. This should have a strike through. And for some reason it wasn't showing. Okay. The rules contained in the current edition of Robert's Rules of Order shall govern the board. We're in section 6 on parliamentary authority. By taking out newly revised, we're making it more evergreen. We don't have to say which edition and update the bylaws every time that Robert's Rules of Order publishes a new one. So if you're comfortable with that, I'll just make that change. Yeah?
yes.
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 Great. Hold on a second.
Is there any statute on that? Because the legislature does not go by Robert's rules.
I don't think that there is. I think that you all are doing it to yourselves.
Yeah, we can do, then that's fine. Yeah. The only reason is because the legislature doesn't require a second. I think that's
Right.
whatever rules are going by.
Yeah. And we've reached the end, the last article, which is article.
That's it?
Oh, wait, no, we haven't. I lied. I scrolled too far.
No.
Section 7, appointment of committees. I don't think we have any changes, but I really want to remind you at this point, because we've had this conversation come up and we see how challenging it can be. And I see this in other commissions and boards that I work on that are public bodies. Establishing a subcommittee is possible. You don't need section 7 to say that. It's already possible for you in state law. That applies to you. But so you can establish a subcommittee even without this section. But I do want to caution you that even advisory subcommittees must adhere to open meeting law. And any subcommittee meeting must be noticed and open to the public. And we came across this last year when 2 board members were working on something, and then it created this whole kind of avalanche of additional work and this feeling of silliness. Like 2 members could just talk in a coffee shop and do some joint work. They're not deciding anything. They then bring it back to the board. So there may be easier ways to do things than to appoint committees. But absolutely, if you'd like to keep this in here, by all means, let's leave it there. But just, I'm going to keep harping on this, and so will my team, because we have to actually spend money to notice a special meeting of the committee.
4 cannot talk because it's a quorum. 3 can, correct?
And the intent here is that your activity is publicly available. It's good intent. But it's also a good practice. If 2 members have an idea and they want to flesh it out and then bring it to the board, the action of the board, the board's learning about it at the meeting. They're acting on it at the meeting. There hasn't been so much sidebarring that all the decisions are made in advance of the meeting. It's just a matter of be careful with subcommittees. And I noticed there's a need for a capital C on committees as we're looking at it just now. So I've put that edit in. No changes were proposed to either by the Article 5 amendment of bylaws or Article 6 separability. And so those are all the changes that we have just reviewed, which is kind of amazing.
Fantastic, because it hasn't been done before.
Well, it's been done before, but not in recent memory. So at the
Yeah.
bottom of this document, there
10
is,
years.
they were first developed in 96, revised in 2011, revised
11.
again in 2011, and then revised again in March 14th. I do want to let you know that the department is responsible for not just publishing these, but also indexing them. And for department staff on the call, that means that we, on our page that has the board policies, we'll have to put the current policy and all prior policies. So if you're here on the call, I may be asking you for help, or members of your team digging out those old policies, because the old bylaws may be in a file cabinet someplace. We have to go back through the minutes and find them. They're not readily findable. The most recent edition is, but we need to index all of them. So it's not that hard to change bylaws, but we do have to index. So I think that my understanding is that what we can do is that I can make these changes. I'll mark them up as a clean copy for you all. And that will be, if you would like to vote at the next meeting, that would be appropriate. We've had this on the agenda numerous times. The documents are available. We can put the new clean document for you to vote on next time. You could even discuss it and vote. We can have an action item if you so choose.
Yeah, I think we should have that. Yeah.
If we had, when I looked at the Article 5 amendment of bylaws, and it says they can be amended at any regular meeting, but if we had to move the meeting, then for some reason, and it turned into a special meeting, would that mean that we wouldn't be able to continue with this topic until we had a
Correct. We
regular
have to wait
meeting?
till the next regular meeting. A quorum at the next regular meeting. Yeah.
Hmm.
So we'll do a discussion with possible vote. Okay. Great. Well, congratulations. This is like a super huge amount of work. And I know that I have gotten to know each of you better through your conversations today, and it's really been helpful to work with you on this. Tom, the next thing on our agenda, if we're ready to move next, is just a quick update about the required training for board appointees and making sure everybody has the information in their emails.
Okay.
So is it okay to move to item?
Yeah, please.
6, Tom?
Please
Okay.
move to the next. Yes.
So Jess, thank you for Jess Leal has been helping to coordinate with CAPS, our training folks here at the state of Vermont. You should have each received, links for training, and it should have come to you in email. If anybody cannot find or does not know where that email is, or can't access those required trainings we've spoken about on ethics and other topics. Is anybody having trouble with that? Do you want to share, and we can have Jess reach out to you and try to figure it out? Jennifer?
I don't have it. I did not receive that.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it. She can reach out to me.
Absolutely.
Or I can contact her, whatever's easier.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you, Jennifer, because they sent me the instructions and login, so I can help you get in there and
terrific.
and get set
Thank
up.
you.
Yeah.
And I think because I had already done it, I was not required to do it again. Was that the case? I think.
Yeah.
Tom, there was the ethics training that everybody must do once, but then there are 2 additional annual trainings that everybody
the annual.
needs to do. So I think, Jess, maybe you can reach out to Tom to make sure he's got that information. And I also understand
send me that again. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Tom, that because of the open meeting law changes, you'll also be required to, as the board chair, you'll be required to take an open meeting law training. I'd love to see that training too. So we are waiting for it from the Secretary of State's office, but I will try to get you into that training as soon as I can.
And I would also
be good.
like for Jessica to make sure that I have everything that I need done. I did some things for the state of Vermont already.
Yeah.
We'll see We can connect
Adrian, I
another
think
time.
you're okay, but we can double check that.
Yeah. She said if you go into your caps and it's not there because you've already taken it, then you're good.
But it sounds like there were 2 other trainings. We can connect at another
Yeah,
time.
let's have the 2 of you connect. That would be good.
Yeah.
Linda has her hand up.
Yes. Is there a deadline for when we have to have this done?
It should have been done months and months ago.
Oh,
As soon
there
as
you
you
go.
can would be great. And a reminder that it's not your fault that you weren't. I want to be really sure. I tried to get guidance back in like November when I was assigned to take the trainings, and I was first given one set of information, and I kept pursuing it and eventually got a second set of information. Then we paid, I think, $40 each for your accounts to train you, and then with the exception of Adrian, and then we are finally getting it done. So as soon as you can would be great. And you can each submit a per diem reimbursement for this. The other thing, so let me just think, was there anything else on that? The only other item on the agenda is the state librarian's report, agenda item 7, Tom.
Yes. And
like
we all had the copy of it. And did anybody else have any questions about that or specifically? But I think it's really good to bring us up to date on the capital.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
And any other thing you think is necessary, but
well, it was a just-in-time report, so I want to just let you know that we've been super busy here in the department, and then add to that I was out of the office visiting family far in the Pacific. I sent the report yesterday, so I'm not sure. Did everybody have an opportunity to read it? If not, I can go through it more. Okay, I'm seeing nods. So yeah, I think the one thing, we've already had a change since yesterday to the report, which is just on the staffing front. Our department is welcoming a new staff member in a limited service position that will support our capital projects, and that is the Contracts and Grants Administration Manager position. So that individual will report to me. His name is Mark McClary. He is coming to us from Dale, from the Department of Disabilities, Aging and Independent Living. He's got lots of experience with grants, working in Agency of Health and Human Services. And we have, Jess is like a firecracker or something. All I say is, hey, we should post this other job soon. And she does it. So I mentioned that yesterday, the position's posted. It's online now. The grant specialist position that reports to Mark, and supports the capital projects. That position has also now been posted. It'll be up for 2 weeks, and we'll see, does that one fill, what happens, but we'll involve Mark in hiring that staff member. So he and I will work closely together. There had been times when we thought we would have announced the capital projects late June, early July. So you're not losing your mind if you heard that. But as we are engaging in the process, we have to take many, many steps, and it is this end game of it is taking a little bit more time than we originally planned, and we have to keep it completely confidential. So I can't talk to you very much about it because that would jeopardize the process and the confidentiality of it. So I just want to say that both the department and the libraries are still in this kind of cone of silence, and we will give you updates as soon as we can. Our team is doing great work, and I can't talk to you about the work yet, but we are hoping that we'll be making announcements in the coming, I hope this month, next month, but just know that the process continues, and that we are actually still working on it, and it's not really been slowed down by the lack of staff. It's just that there are a lot of elements to it. So that is great work that the team is doing, and a lot of folks are taking on additional duties. So Tom McMurdo, Jeanette Schaefer, Jess Leal, and our regular full-time Contracts and Grants Administrator, Mackenzie Boyle, are all pitching in with that, and I'm doing lots of things with it as well. And we're really just making sure that we get the grants out there and that we really do it to the letter as far as the federal government goes and our state practices. So please bear with us. It does take a little bit of time, and there is guidance from above that we receive, and so we really are just buttoning everything up. So I
Kathy,
think
can
you're
I
all,
can I just
yeah,
can I just say that being our library is one of the applicants for
Linda,
that
yeah.
grant. I'm just going to say that, but
Okay.
but just to say that I think that grant is a wonderful opportunity for libraries in Vermont, and thank you very much for securing
Oh, you're
that
welcome.
grant for the state. And yes, it's been hard to be patient, but
It
your
is,
work
yeah.
your work is very important, and I just want to congratulate you and your staff for doing such a good job thus far. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm so nervous that somehow we're going to talk about the process accidentally. So that's why I'm like, oh, don't say. But we really, it's been very challenging, and we really, the confidentiality of the process is so important to the awards process. And so I just appreciate everybody's patience with us. We have shared a message out on our capital projects website that explains where things are. We've also told all of the applicants the same message about that confidentiality and the importance of maintaining that. And, thank them profusely for their patience, because that is really, really appreciated. Some other stuff that's going on that department staff are doing that I really want to highlight and thank staff for is that with the passage of S220, which is now called Act 150, we have had lots of questions at the department. The bill was signed into law by the governor, I think on June 3rd. And just 2 days later, we had a webinar. We pulled together information and we presented. And thanks to Kevin Unrath, my co-host, who people like way better than me in the presentation. I'm very dry, and Kevin is much more fun in the presentation. His slides are very practical, and the community really appreciated his support. And also Joy Warland, our rural and small libraries consultant, and Kevin Unrath have been fielding questions, one-on-ones, emails, making suggestions. The consultants have been talking about Act 150 and all of the necessary changes to bylaws around confidentiality, which is really kind of the biggest issue that libraries were like, oh, we need to sprint to get ready for this, because the change in age of confidentiality at public libraries went into place on July 1st. So effective July 1st, the age of confidentiality went from 16 down to 12. So that's something where we've really been encouraging those evergreen policies, just like we encourage the bylaws to be evergreen. And we've been supporting staff in really just saying, well, if you do this set of things for the 16-year-olds, just do that set of procedures when the child turns 12 instead. So it's a difference for folks, and everybody's adapting to it locally. But we think that there's pretty good awareness out there from the huge number of attendees we had at our webinar. And we've made a page that I provided a link to so that you can really just see what we're sharing with the community. I'm happy to talk about that more in detail if you'd like at a future meeting. I want to also thank Josh Muse for his work leading the wind down of the Fiber Connect project and issuing of nearly $700,000 in grants to public libraries in the state to transition off of Fiber Connect and onto local ISPs. And I also want to thank everybody in the team, but particularly Jeanette Schaefer, who has been preparing for our upcoming Not an Audit IMLS visit. They say it's not an audit, but our books are out. We're locked in a room with them, and they won't accept sandwiches. So that's next week. So Jeanette's been getting everything ready, and we're really, I think, in a good position. We've submitted I think we're submitting all of the documentation for their review today. And Cindy from IMLS, who is our program officer and is really supportive. This is intended for them to help us kind of administer those federal funds that make up 1/3 of our department budget. Those are IMLS, Institute of Museum and Library Services, LSTA, which means Library Services Technology Act, grants to states. So it's a 3-4 acronym program, and Jeanette somehow keeps it straight. And Huge thanks to everybody in the team who's been working to prep for that. Something that I didn't put in the report, but I will just say, is that Tom McMurdo, Joy Warland, and I represented the department, and your fellow board member and vice chair, Adrian Katz, represented the board quite capably and with enthusiasm at the Warren 4th of July parade. I had family in the audience who heard other people saying, I really hope those librarians are coming with their book trucks. So also the department's green book trucks were in the parade. So, you know, we're really getting the department out there. We had cows on the front of them. They had signs. We led the crowd in a cheer of Act 150, freedom to read. I was standing there afterward. I think Adrian and I were standing near each other, and some young men walked past, like people in their 20s, and saw us, and they were like screaming, Act 150, freedom to. That's a hard group for us to reach. And then it happened again. Joy went to the Red Hen to get a creamy, and apparently she was accosted by young men screaming Act 150. So really getting the word out there about Vermont libraries. And we had a lot of fun. If anybody wants to march next year, I mean, imagine if we had eight book trucks doing the routine.
Ooh.
Down here in Jacksonville, when I took the city tour, and one of the things, I didn't say it, I thought it, as it was pointing out the beautiful library down here in Jacksonville and another library, and I felt like yelling out, but 90% of the books are banned, so that doesn't make much difference. So.
If you'd like to read, why don't you come on up to Vermont? We've got some.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, maybe, I wonder if a book is banned at your library, will they let you interlibrary loan it?
Oh.
That's an interesting question.
And would they let a child interlibrary loan a banned book? Would they need permission? I'm just curious, asking for a friend. Sorry, it's not nice to laugh. I think I'm laughing so I don't cry about what I hear from some of our colleagues. But here in Vermont, we really are in a different position, and we're really grateful to the library community. Yes. Act 150 was a collaborative effort. We were working hand in hand with the Vermont Library Association, meeting to coordinate our testimony and things of that nature. It was really, really helpful. And the Vermont School Library Association co-presidents were testifying as well. And so we really are appreciative. The whole library community worked on the working group report, which led to that change. And so we have some of the most supportive legislation in the country for intellectual freedom and the right to read. And it's really it really felt great to be walking down the street and thousands of people are screaming, and we're not even throwing candy. So it felt really, really nice.